As we learned in the last video, a resolution is a UN action plan to solve a problem. In this video, we will learn how to write an effective resolution. It's the late 1960s. The South African government has just announced the launch of its nuclear weapons program. South Africa now has an atomic bomb. The UN needs to act. They need to find a way to limit any other countries from getting weapons of mass destruction. Let's take Resolution 418 from 1977. This resolution disallowed weapons trading with South Africa. None of the countries in the United Nations Security Council, including the USA, which traded uranium with South Africa, could sell or buy weapons from South Africa. Shortly afterward, uranium shipments were stopped. Within 13 years, the South African government gave up all of its nuclear weapons. It was the first country ever to do so. UN resolutions can be powerful documents, but for every resolution 418 regarding nuclear weapons, there's a counterexample. A resolution which failed to solve conflicts, recalled key peacekeeping missions too soon, maybe even made a crisis worse. And because they can be so powerful, a lot of their success depends on how well they're written. There are three main parts of a resolution that would be used by our conference, MUN. The heading, preambulatory clauses, operative clauses. This video will explain how to write each of them. We'll start with the heading, which begins with the topic of the resolution. At the top of each resolution, you will find the topic. As we learned in the video, How to Be a Delegate, a UN resolution has the specific objective to resolve a global issue. In our example of South African nuclear weapons, rather than just writing a resolution describing the problem, for example, the embargo against South Africa, the United Nations General Assembly proposed a resolution addressing the necessity of the embargo against South Africa, specifically explaining what needs to be done about the problem. Next in the heading, you'll find the forum or committee that is deliberating about your resolution. Since the United Nations deals with so many issues, it's divided into many forums. For instance, the Economic and Social Council, also known as the ECOSOC, the Disarmament Committee, the Environment Committee, and so forth. Lastly in the heading, you will find the main submitter heading, which is where the member state, or states, who are primarily responsible for writing the resolution. When you list the countries, make sure they are in alphabetical order. Occasionally, you will also find the other countries who helped write the resolution listed below as co-submitters, again in alphabetical order. Now that the heading is complete, we will be moving on to the second part of the resolution, the preambulatory clauses. So what is a preambulatory clause? The word preambulatory is essentially a fancy way of saying introductory, or literally from the Latin, running before. And that's what preambulatory clauses do. They introduce the complex topic by explaining what the issue is and stating why the United Nations should deal with it. So, how does a preambulatory clause start? To make sure that readers can identify the problem, each preambulatory clause begins with an italicized preambulatory phrase, such as recalling, reminding, disturbed by, or bearing in mind. A preambulatory phrase always identifies or describes the issue instead of proposing suggestions or specific actions. For a full list of preambulatory phrases, click the link below. Finally, how do you write a strong preambulatory clause? There are four main points you should always keep in mind when you write a preambulatory clause. Remember the three C's: convince, contextualize, and connect. Convince. Make sure your forum understands the issue's importance through the background you give. Are you trying to resolve a conflict that has claimed thousands of lives? End oppression that has affected people for decades? Convince other delegates that this issue needs a UN resolution to solve. Contextualize. Give background information. What's happened until now? Have things gotten better or worse? Has the UN dealt with the problem before, such as writing previous resolutions? Do you have statistics to offer that make the issue clearer? Answer these questions in your preambulatory clause. Be sure to use concrete details. Specify dates, statistics, UN resolutions, events, or other factors that have influenced the issue and will be used in debate. Make your background information detailed and exact. Make sure the preambulatory clauses connect to the rest of the resolution. For the preambulatory clauses to be relevant, the information in them needs to be addressed in the operative clauses, which brings us to the third part of the resolution, after the heading and the preambulatory clauses. First, what is an operative clause? In our example of South Africa's nuclear weapons, the UN only managed to get South Africa to surrender their weapons after proposing a specific solution, a uranium embargo on the country. In a resolution, those kinds of proposals and action plans to solve the topic are the operative clauses, the section of a resolution that will primarily be debated in an MUN committee. So how do you start an operative clause? Just like a preambulatory clause, each operative clause begins with an operative phrase. The difference between operative and preambulatory phrases is that operative phrases call for a specific action, such as suggests, recommends, or calls upon. For a full list of operative phrases, click the link below. You can choose an operative clause that best fits the information you have found. Now, how do we write a strong operative clause? Before you start, ask yourself the following questions. What do you want to do about the problem? What problems do you want to solve? Writing a good operative clause can be tricky if you don't know where to start. After all, you're often trying to find ways to solve a very complex problem with many different interests. To make your operative clauses effective, remember the 3 P's: partnership, practicality, and precision. Partnership. The very name of the United Nations implies unity. That includes cooperation and collaboration, not only between member states, but also with UN bodies, regional organizations like the EU or African Union, non-governmental organizations or NGOs, and the people of individual countries. Remember that your resolution is a way to forward your national policy to include as many member states as possible. To do so, your resolution will need the cooperation of as many groups as possible for an effective solution. In a global effort to combat terrorism, for instance, your resolution will be much more effective if it emphasizes the collective partnership of its member states, non-governmental organizations like Transparency International, or UN organizations like UNICEF. Of course, this partnership is only possible if your solutions are practical. Practicality. After carefully researching your topic, you'll have an understanding of what solutions will and won't work. By making your operative clauses practical, you're not only ensuring that partnership can actually take place, but that you can effectively address the topic. For example, solutions to an issue like global terrorism might seem few and far between, and a resolution that advocates for nations to concentrate all of the resources on defeating a terrorist organization is unlikely to be successful. Instead, make sure that your operative clauses are ones that member states believe they can and should adopt, ones that do not put too much strain on budgets, ones that do not infringe on their sovereignty, and ones that will not make them reluctant to support your solution. Achieving practicality is easiest if your operative clauses are precise, which brings us to the third P, precision. Avoid ambiguity, misunderstandings, and redundancy. Be clear and concise. The solutions you propose should be implementable. Outline clear measures, propose detailed tasks for new bodies you're planning to create that all understand and can implement. Grammatically, everyone should understand what you're saying. But beyond that, make sure that your clauses aren't empty words like suggests that member states give their all to defeat terrorists. Instead, propose actually viable, specific solutions. Nonetheless, do not make the clauses too specific, especially when working in most committees. Avoid proposing that member states spend a certain amount of money on the solutions you've proposed. Model United Nations has many conferences globally, but most MUN resolutions share a basic format with 3 parts. Firstly, the heading. Secondly, preambulatory clauses. And thirdly, operative clauses. Moreover, resolutions share an objective to resolve global problems. When you write a resolution, you might be attempting daunting tasks like stopping conflicts, ending poverty in some regions of the world, or improving the state of the environment. So make sure you solve these issues properly by writing preambulatory clauses that follow the 3 C's to convince, contextualize, and connect, and operative clauses that follow the 3 P's of partnership, practicality, and precision. Thanks for watching. Now that you understand how to write a resolution, go to the next video and learn how to research.